So you mentioned earlier about charities. I know you do a lot of charity work. Can you talk about some of the charities you work with?
Sure. Oh, gosh, there's lots of them. One of my favorites is actually with the Bears. So the Bears are actively involved with a charity called Prevent Child Abuse America. And they do several events throughout the year that help raise money for children who are in need, victims of domestic violence that are trying to remove their children from bad situations and help fund them to restart their lives. And it's really a remarkable charity. But they do a great event. It's called Bowling with Bears. And I've been fortunate enough to MC it for the last 3 years, and I'll be doing it again this year. But they bring out several players from the Bears team, and it's all, they do a good job bringing out big name players. It's not people who are on the practice squad. It's the people that, they want to meet. And they basically auction off all the players, and you get to go through a round of bowling with the bear that you've purchased. And all of the teams and all the lanes then compete to win. I think the prize this year was a trip to Las Vegas. But it's a neat prize. But people will play quite a bit of money to play with their favorite bear. So it's really a cool experience to be there to, watch the money get made for the charity. And also it's just a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So, it's having fun for a good cause. And there's a couple first responder charities that I work with. One particular one is heavily involved with Bill and Joel Murray, the actors. Mm-hmm. They do an event every year for first responders, and it's a big golf outing. And I said I liked golf. I also like to play golf. And they basically bring out a whole series of first responders, and I think at the last year when they had over 20 firefighters and police officers from 9/11, which being a New Yorker for me was extra special, and they came out to play. And then they bring out a bunch of celebrity golfers, and I was basically like the least cool celebrity golfer last year. And I hate that word because I just don't think of myself that way. But they had some really neat, they had Mark Moses from Mad Men and several cast members from SNL. And we had obviously Bill and Joel Murray, and Andy Murray was there, and lots of athletes, pro, currently, and former. Several I recognized. Other people were very excited about. They were maybe a little bit older than when I have been following sports. But it's just a really unbelievable event. I mean, and it's the best kind of charity event when you can get as many people as possible out to raise as much money as possible, and everybody still has a great time.
Yeah, one of my favorite things I see you get to do is get to play poker for charity.
I do. There are not a lot of women that play poker, in particular, I guess, in Chicago. So whenever there is a charity poker tournament or a charity casino night, I am sort of the go-to call if we are short on ladies, and everybody knows I love playing. Although this year, that's actually another one of my favorite charities. One Step Camp is the name of the camp, and it's a camp that is run completely on charitable donations. They take children that are either currently suffering from cancer or are in sort of not necessarily remission, but in the after treatment stages. And as long as they're cleared by a doctor, they allow them to have a summer camp experience where they're overseen by medical professionals. And it's really an unbelievable thing because some of the former campers will come and they act as volunteer dealers. And so you get to interact with the kids that you're actually helping while you're at the charity event. And it's just a really special event. They also bring out a lot of the casts of some of the big NBC shows, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD. They'll come out and play with us too. And I just love playing in those events. But this year, some of the guys on one of the sports radio stations here in Chicago, I'm not going to say which one, told everybody that I was a good poker player, and I usually pretend. Oh, I'm so sorry, my dog's barking in the background.
It's okay.
I usually pretend that I am slightly clueless about what's going on. And this year they told everyone on the radio, don't fall for my tricks. I know how to play. And so I showed up, and I don't listen to their show, and I was informed that everyone had been told, don't fall for Marley's tricks. She knows how to play. She's a shark. So it was a different experience this year because usually people underestimate, a younger woman at the table and think I'm just there to, have fun and contribute my time. But I do really like being surprisingly good, and that's one of the things I can usually sneak attack on. So I'm hoping people forget for next year.
One thing I think is really cool is that before you got into television, you actually worked a lot as an actress, or were in plays and or singer. And actually, you were Miss Teen New York.
Many moons ago. Gosh, that was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
doesn't seem that long ago. I started doing professional theater when I was 11 years old. So for more than half my life, I was making a living as a professional musical theater actress, and it's come in handy a lot. Doing news. It's a different forum in terms of live performance. I guess the major difference is I'm not playing a character. I'm actually being myself now, which sometimes is easier and other times is harder. But it absolutely has come in handy, especially when we're dealing with technical issues or scripting issues or sometimes some interesting characters. Having experience in a live setting can be very applicable to doing the news. So it has been very helpful for me.
Well, that's awesome. Can you talk about what a normal weekend morning is like for you? What time you have to get up and everything you have to do in the mornings?
Oh, sure. It's just going to depress people, but I'll tell you. I get up about 2:15 if I'm feeling super motivated, sometimes a little before then. If I'm extra tired, sometimes it's a couple minutes after that. I usually make oatmeal or eat a granola bar. You're not super hungry when you get up that early, so I try to eat something, but it's not usually a big breakfast. I haven't been having coffee lately, so that used to be part of the program, but these last couple months I haven't had any coffee, so I usually just make hot water with lemon. I try to leave my house by 3. I'm usually at work by 3:15. I fortunately don't live very far from NBC. And then we go on air at 5, so in the downtime, we have a makeup artist, which is really nice because nobody looks good at that hour. So I have my time in the makeup chair, and then I spend all the rest of the time checking the news. And with traffic, I actually make all my own maps. So any sort of graphic that you see on air that I've done, and pretty typically I think in any market, was typically made by the reporter who's covering it. So every time they change, I'm making those. I'm building every single page that you see. I'm also sourcing all the information because they don't have a producer. So I'm trying to track down, I talk to the police pretty regularly several times a morning. I talk to the Illinois Department of Transportation and the tollway system. Those are usually my first phone calls. And then we go on at 5. We have news at 5, at 6, at 8, and at 10 on Sundays. And then on Saturday mornings, it changes depending on the sports schedule. We always have news 5 and 6, and then usually like an 8 o'clock or a 9 o'clock show for an hour. So on a good day, I'm out at 10:30. On a longer day, I'm usually out by noon. But it's a typical length work day. I just start much earlier than most people do.
Yeah, and you look like $1 million that early in the morning too.
That's the makeup artist. I don't look like that when I get to work. It's like The Walking Dead.
Yeah, I always notice whenever you do something different with your hair or stuff like that.
You do. You're the best about noticing that. So because we have a makeup artist, our makeup is supposed to be the same every single time because they want there to be continuity. But sometimes that gets a little bit boring. So I'll sometimes try new things with my hair. Not anything that I could get in trouble for, but I'll do little changes here and there. You are just about the only person other than my mother that picks up on them.
Well, it's from watching you for the past 3 years.
I know, right? It's been so long.
Yeah. So one of the other things I think it's really cool that you get to do working for NBC5 is on New Year's Eve, and you get to host a big extravaganza in Chicago.
Yes, so that has been probably my favorite experience thus far. We decided last year that there was absolutely no reason that the Midwest shouldn't have its own New Year's celebration. I guess prior to that, we'd just been taking the New York Times Square celebration and replaying it an hour later, which is really sad considering we're about a third of the country. And they decided to launch their own New Year's production called Chi-Town Rising from here in Chicago. We sort of centered it around NBC Tower, which is conveniently located on the river. And I was very fortunate the first year to be the only person from NBC Chicago that was involved. We brought in Mario Lopez to be our primary host, and then Akbar Bajabiamila and Matt Eisman from American Ninja Warrior were the co-hosts with me. And it was just a really great experience. It was also a lot of fun because, it was a completely live show, and the newscasts are live, but they're very set in a structure. And this was a first-time show, the first time it had ever been done. We'd had rehearsals, but there's only so much you can plan for when you're dealing with, I think we had like 39,000 people, spectators involved. So, there was that element was fun too. And I got to do it again this year. It was our second year for Chi-Town Rising. And this year I was outside. Last year I was inside. It was very, very cold. Mm-hmm. But I was up right along the river, right in front of the music stage. So I was right in the thick of, I guess, the biggest party. They actually had to shut it down because the road started moving underneath us.
Oh, my goodness.
We were at about 30,000 people.
Wow.
And it was really such a unique experience. I'm really hoping we do it again this year and that I get to be involved. And maybe I won't have to be outside this year again because it was much better being inside.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember the pictures that you tweeted out, everything, all the layers you had to wear. And
well, I had a coat on my upper half,
yeah.
And my lower half got so cold that I took another parka and I just zipped it up to my waist. So I had two coats. They looked like some sort of like alien or bug because it looked like I had 4 arms. I had my 2 arms and then the 2 arms hanging from the parka from my waist. I'm sure I looked like a lunatic to everybody that was out there listening to the music, but it was the only way I could stay warm.
Yeah, plus when you're on TV, you're just from the waist up, so it looked just totally fine.
You couldn't see it on TV, but everybody, the 30,000 people around me could see it. I'm sure they were like, "What is wrong with that girl?"
That's cool. So you're expecting a child now. You announced
I am. Yeah, that's why I haven't been having any coffee.
Yeah. So when are you due? And if you pick out a name,
our little girl will be here October 7th. We have a finalist for her name, but it's not set in stone, so I'm not going to say it publicly until we've absolutely committed that will be her name.
Okay, well, that's cool. So, I mean, you look spectacular. You got the motherly glow thing going. So,
oh, thank you.
So, I just hope everything goes well and everybody stays healthy. That's awesome. So, if
that's
someone,
the goal.
If someone wants to follow you on Twitter, or can you give out your social media accounts so they can follow you?
Sure, yeah. So on Twitter and on Instagram, I'm just at Marley Kayden. It's MarleyKayden. And on Facebook, I'm at Marley Kayden NBC5. So I'm very easy to find. I'm also, fortunately, the only Marley Kayden. So if you forget what they are and you just search me, I'm pretty easy to find. I can thank my parents for a first name that nobody else has.
Yeah, because the only time I think I've heard that name before was whenever the movie came out.
Yes, the dog movie. It was also a book. One of my favorite questions, and I shockingly have gotten this several times, was, "Are you named after that movie?" I'm pretty sure it only came out like 6 or 7 years ago, and I'm a few years older than 6 or 7. So no, I wasn't named after the movie, but I do chuckle when I get asked that.
That's awesome. Marley, thank you so much for your time. And you know how special you are to me. You're more beautiful inside than you are out, and that's saying something because you're beautiful outside too.
Thank you, Tommy. It was my pleasure. Happy to be on this show.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.